And I would note for the record, everybody is present. First item of business is the approval of the minutes of the March 23rd meeting. I turned my few corrections in. Basically, it's been the problem I've had all along that Ms. Bogus thinks the motion I asked for is being approved, and I think it should be there, that it was approved. She's making that leap of faith, and I don't. But other than that, anybody have any changes, additions, or corrections? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the March 23rd meeting. Ms. Jordan, is there a second? Mr. Trable, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And I think there should be two abstentions, Mr. Roof and Ms. Johnson. Okay. Privilege of the floor. I'm told nobody signed the sheet. Anybody wish to address council on an agenda item? Here, we have a gentleman. Would you please stand, come up to the microphone, please? We'll need your name and address for the record.
It should be on there.
Name is Jason Brandon. Live at 701 South Hufford Street.
How may we help you?
Just concerned about the closing of the Fountain Hill Pool.
That's not an agenda item.
Okay.
So, but I'm going to give you your chance, but it's going to be at the end.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
I'm in no rush.
I thank.
They're over on the table there, sir.
Yeah, if you want an agenda.
This is all new to me.
No, please. We are, trust me, we're happy you are here.
It's new to me.
Thank you.
Mayor's report.
I've got nothing.
That is short and sweet. Borough Manager's report. First item is the microphone etiquette.
So as we did the inaugural run of the streaming at last meeting, we noticed that some of us project very well, including me and my loud mouth, and some of us do not. These microphones are unidirectional. They're made to only pick up in a small cone. So for the sake of the video, for those watching out on the internet, and for the subsequent recordings that we memorialize on YouTube, if everyone could just be cognizant of leaning forward and talking into the mic. I did turn up the speakers in here, so you can actually hear if you're projecting now. Before, I felt like they were a little low and you couldn't tell, so hopefully that'll help a little bit. But that is that item.
Our trash collection update.
Yeah, so council's direction after, was that 2 meetings ago, I sent a communication to Republic advising them that we would be looking to use the fines that are available to us in the contract. I did inform them that absent a code enforcement officer right now, I don't know how much trash policing I personally will be doing, but they should consider themselves on notice and in a bit of a grace period. I'm happy to say that just anecdotally, the complaints have subsided in the short term. Whether that's coincidence or as a result of that, I don't know yet, but hopefully it stays that way.
That sounds good. Pool partnership discussion.
Again, at council's direction after the last meeting, I reached out to some of our neighbors, the city of Allentown, the city of Bethlehem, and the borough of Hellertown. While Allentown and Bethlehem did not say no outright, their concern remains staffing. They are uncertain. Allentown is down to 2 pools, Mac and Cedar Beach, Mac being the one that would be really the only one proximal at all to Fountain Hill. They did not shut the door on that, but they had to run it up the food chain and get back to me. They have not yet. I spoke to the Director of Recreation in the city of Bethlehem. Their goal this year is to open all of the community pools. If they do so, the one Yasco over on the south side would be available for anyone to go and purchase a day pass. However, they also cannot guarantee that they are going to have the staff to open those community pools. They will open Memorial first, and Memorial is reserved for city residents only. So finally, that left us Hellertown. I had a productive conversation with their borough manager. They are discussing it at their council meeting tonight, but some of the preliminary discussions were that we would subsidize the difference between a resident rate in the borough of Hellertown versus a non-resident rate for both a season pass and they do like 8-pack of day passes that we could sell here, and we could potentially sell them at what Hellertown is charging their residents, and then we would subsidize the difference for our residents. And then daily passes, they would do just like anyone else would do, is you show up at the pool for that day, and if they have capacity, they will let you in. But again, they were taking it to their council tonight. Hopefully I'll have a report back and something we can further discuss once I hear back from them.
That also sounds encouraging. All right, the next item is the zoning code enforcement officer.
Yeah, so the position closed on Thursday. We have numerous applicants. I would say there are 4 of them that are very strong that we will probably be interviewing in the very near future, with the hope to narrow that down to a final 2 candidates that council can interview, and then we can have that person on board sooner than later as we get into the busy building season for a lot of folks in their outdoor projects.
Yeah, we want to try to get that filled as quickly as possible. Next item on the agenda is ordinance 567 and 568.
Yeah, so those 2 ordinances were advertised. They will be actionable at the May meeting, the first week in May 2nd. 567 was the Ronca Street parking. There was also correspondence sent to all the neighbors in that block that abut Ronca Street on all 4 sides. So far, we've received 1 correspondence back in favor of it. But as we continue to get those, we'll aggregate them. And then the zoning hearing board one, that was advertised as well.
All right, and finally, the fire truck update. The auction update, I mean.
Yeah, so the fire truck we listed on Municipid, the old fire truck that was replaced with the new one, it did not meet its $10,000 reserve price. So we got in like the 7,000s, so we relisted that item. So I relisted it again for another 3 weeks, so hopefully we meet that reserve price. I think that's definitely a fair price for that vehicle. So more to follow on that, but it is still outgoing. So if you know anyone who wants to buy a fire truck, please send them the Municipid. And I have that one other item then that I didn't pull.
All right, and the new item?
Yeah, so Mike Zavko, resident, had reached out to me on Friday about the potential of using Borough Hall council chambers here for a community meeting to discuss options for a community group potentially reviving the pool. We certainly don't need an action item. I'd be more than willing to stay here one night and open up for them and remain here while they have their discussion, just looking for a consensus from council before I offer up your chambers.
I certainly have no objection to it, and to refresh your recollection, that's the Citizens Committee he proposed at the pool meeting, and I actually had a volunteer on Facebook in the discussion about the pool to be on it. So I'll make sure she knows about the meeting once it's scheduled.
Yeah, I did offer to Mr. Zavko too that we would share on our social media as well, and we'll schedule it far enough out to give ample notice. So hearing no objection, I will communicate that to him tomorrow, and we'll get to work on that.
All right, thank you very much. New business, the pay rates for the summer playground staff and the slightly rewritten job description.
Yeah, there's really nothing earth-shattering in the change for the job description. We have the positions. You have the recreation coordinator manager, as it was dubbed, and then the seasonal recreation assistant. So both of these obviously would be one to supervise the activities in the park, and then another person to assist them. The one thing of note, I think the work description, and these were distributed in your packet, I think that the scope of work is still relevant. The pay rates are from 2019. I don't know that they're not competitive, but I also don't know that, given the competitive market for summer labor, that we're going to end up with a tremendous amount of applicants. So just looking for some thoughts on that before we put it out.
Have we heard anything from anybody who worked for us pre-COVID about coming back? No?
Question here.
Yes, Mr. Treble.
If we don't have any applicants, what happens then?
I don't think we can open.
Unless between zoning and driving the fire truck, you'd like me to go out and play kickball. I would agree with Mr. Blatt, unfortunately. I mean, I'm hoping that's not the case, that we at least get someone to do activities, but I will tell you that in talking to these other municipalities, reference the pool and just general summer help, it is a very difficult market right now.
And I would point out that's Mr. Treble,
What did I say?
Mr. Blatt.
No, I said it would be your situation if.
Okay. But in any event, we're hoping to get somebody there to run the program at least at night, I would think. And the afternoon would be a bonus. No, actually, we didn't run it in the afternoon.
What we did the last time, because Fountain Hill Elementary decided to run a program in the morning, we decided not to open in the morning. So it was just open in the evenings. I would like to see us get back to operating more than 8 hours during the summer. I know growing up we had a little bit more time before school ended, and then throughout the summer, and then as school started. But I know, again, with staffing, but I also know that high school students are looking for community service hours. So if we could staff them with people looking for community service work, that's also an option.
But they would still have to have.
They would still, of course, have to have their clearances,
certificates,
absolutely.
Of course,
Yep.
okay. All right, well, let's stay on that. I'd like not to see the playground and the pool both die in the same year.
Absolutely not. That would be horrible.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess tonight, all I'm just looking for is a little bit, I would like to get these out sooner than later, and I don't think we need an action to or a motion to advertise them on the website. It would be when we come down the hiring is, I guess what I was looking for the input. I think those rates at 16 for the coordinator/manager and 12 for the assistant are competitive in what we want to start with now, or do we want to revisit that before I post?
Well, it's well above the minimum wage, but I can't help but notice at the Wawa door, they're starting their clerks at 15 an hour.
Yeah, I think that the manager position should be probably closer to 20 and then 15 for the supplemental staff.
I would tend to agree. I just hope we budgeted that.
I don't think we did, but I think with the pool closing, we have extra funds for
You
recreation.
and I had just had the same thought.
Yeah, and I think there's some discretion within that discretionary room within those line items for the playground, regardless of the pool status. But, so do we think 18 and 15 sound fair, or do you want to go all the way to 20?
I would go to,
You know,
Okay.
I agree.
All right, so 20 and 15.
Do you need a formal motion?
No, I don't
Just
think
a
until we,
consensus?
just a consensus, and then we'll put it out there, and once we have applicants, then it'll be the motion to hire them at that rate then.
All right, that's the only new business agenda item, but we have to be very cognizant of the new rules regarding the Sunshine Act, but does anybody else have any new business? Hearing none, the resolution 2022-18, a resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Fountain Hill, authorizing the application for a grant from the Lehigh County Department of Community and Economic Development for Community Development Block Grant Funds. You're basically asking or authorizing the borough manager to submit the application?
Correct, and we would be using these to continue our reconstruction of Jeter Avenue. Kiefer was done last year, a piece of Jeter between Kiefer and, Jason, is it Kluhl? Are we going Kluhl to Kiefer this year?
I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
The block grant for this year.
For this year will be between Bergen and Kiefer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, last year's, the one we're paving this year. What are we doing this coming up? Kiefer and what?
That will be between Bergen and Kiefer.
On Jeter. Thought that's what we're applying for. What's the next piece then? Anyway, we're continuing on Jeter. It's not that, we're going to pave Jeter Avenue. How about that?
All right. I'll accept that for the time being. I'm not going to put you on the spot. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution? So moved. Mr. Trotter, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Johnson? Any other questions on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. Trober? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Riff? Yes. Mr. Trotter? And I vote yes. You have a new job. You have a new job to do. There are no other resolutions, there are no ordinances. The first motion is to allow UGI and Great Western Services to start work at 7 a.m. on Saturday mornings instead of 9. Apparently our noise ordinance prohibits them from starting any sooner than 9. They are here tonight if anybody has any questions.
So they're well within their scope of work for the noise abatement. It starts at 7 a.m. on Monday through Friday. So that reference section of the codified ordinance is there, 601, number 4, says between 9 and 4 on Saturday. However, it does leave a room for council to make an exception for utility work if they see fit. So they had asked us if they could get that 2-hour extension. And again, representatives from UGI and Great Western are both here tonight if anyone has any questions about the work or why they're requesting.
That's only on a Saturday.
This would only be on a Saturday. They'll still be working Monday through Friday. This exception is just related to Saturday.
And do we have any idea when PennDOT's going to start?
Brady, you want to take that? You want to come up to the podium just so we can hear
Please
you?
come up to the podium and speak into it, please.
I'll let someone else tell you. We don't know.
Okay.
You're good. It'll pick up from there.
Okay. So PennDOT is planning to come through and do paving. I'm sure everyone is well aware.
Finally, after 30 some odd years.
So they are starting milling work down, I forget the name of the street. What's that? Sidersville. Yes, so they are progressing east, coming onto Broadway and coming through our work zone corridor as early as the next couple of weeks. However, because we are performing some gas work in that area, they can't actually do the paving until our work is completed. Otherwise, they're gonna come through and pave, and we're gonna have to cut apart their brand-new pave, which certainly nobody wants that.
Yeah,
So-
please don't do that.
So that's the emphasis for asking for the extension, is just longer working hours. We can get more done quicker, so we can get off the roadway and allow them to come.
How many Saturdays do you think you're going to need?
7 or 8, Rick.
Yeah, 7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking at being done the pipe work June-ish.
Yeah, we're looking mid-June for completion of the pipe work.
All right.
Immediately following coming through to do the base grade, so PennDOT can get in there and do that.
Anybody else have any questions for the representatives from UGI?
So I just want to make sure I understand. So your expectation is that you will be, with this extension in the morning, you'll be able to have the work completed in time for when PennDOT comes through? So you don't have to rip up what they're going to put down?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And she expects she expects 6 or 7 Saturdays. Any other questions?
Is there anything that we need to do for the residents impacted in the area?
No, unfortunately, there's a whistle and flag people who will do the continued one lane at a time, right?
That's correct. Yep.
And we could put something out on social media that they're going to be starting Saturday work. I think I had already put out, they were approved for Saturday work from, within the hours of 9 to 4 by PennDOT, and that's compliant with our noise ordinance, so I would just amend that for this, just to communicate that out.
All right, are there any other questions?
That means you're going to start at Dotson Street and work.
No, this is all on Broadway, I believe, all right?
Correct. Yep.
Oh, yeah, well,
It's only on Broadway.
start at Dotson Street and work your way down, right?
No,
Up.
down. It'll be down here.
Oh, they're going to start down here at Bishop Thorpe.
The work zone, so it's broken up into 2 phases. The first phase is starting at, I had to make myself a cheat sheet, Norway Place by the funeral home, and it's going to Benner Ave by the car wash. And then the next phase will continue on from Benner down to Fiat Ave.
And that's, in the first phase is where you're at now, right?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the waiver to allow them to start at 7. Mr. Trabel, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Johnson, any other questions on the motion? Hearing none, Mr. Trabel, Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Jordan,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Ruff. Yes. Mr. Trotter. And I vote yes. Let's get the job done so PennDOT can finally resurface.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
The next motion item is to authorize, and I'm going to butcher this name, Retu Associates to file for a highway occupancy permit on behalf of the Borough of Broadway for the Broadway sanitary sewer. What's that all about?
That is for where the metering pit is, Bethlem scope of work there, that was already approved. They just need to file, they did Bethlem's highway occupancy permit because it's a state road, they just need to file one on our behalf. So we'll be authorizing them.
Routine thing?
Very. In fact, I'm not even sure that it had to be a council action, but I figured since the meeting was coming up, we would do that. I might have been able to sign it.
Okay, is there a motion to authorize that? So moved. Mr. Trabel, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Jordan, any questions? Hearing none. Mr. Trabel? Yes. Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ruff? Yes. Mr. Trotter? Yes. And I vote yes. Okay, final item for motion is to approve that to hire Gary Arndt as the full-time Public Works employee as recommended by the Public Works Committee. He is to start on April the 18th, and I assume that's subject to the physical, the drug test, and all the other things?
Yeah, so this was a bit expedited. We interviewed him on Thursday, and the committee requested to move favorably with it. On the next meeting agenda, Mr. Gambino has resigned during his probationary period, so that is the vacancy.
That didn't last long.
Yes, so this would be to fill that position, so obviously we're getting in the busy season here, so we didn't want to lag. So he will get, after tonight's vote, if council approves, we'll get him started on the required stuff, so he's free and clear to start on the 18th.
Does he have a Class A C deal?
He has a Class B with a tanker endorsement, so he just needs to transition to the Class A.
Okay. Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion to hire Gary Arndt as a full-time Public Works employee.
Okay, that's a motion by Ms. Jordan. You're way ahead of me, Mr. Trabel. A second by Mr. Trabel. Any questions about Mr. Arndt? Is he here tonight, by the way?
He is not, because this was he literally interviewed Thursday, so it was a little bit short notice. So he sends his regrets that he was unable to jockey his schedule to be here tonight, but we'll make sure he comes in front of council to introduce himself.
All right, any questions about his hiring? Hearing none. Mr. Trabel? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ruff?
Yes.
Mr. Trotter?
Yes.
And let's bring him on board. I vote yes. Old business. I want to remind the borough that we're resuming the Easter egg hunt this year. It's scheduled for this coming Saturday, the 9th. That's a bit of a change. It was usually the day before Easter, but I guess this year we're doing it a week early. It'll start at 10 o'clock, and it's at the Stanley Avenue Playground. It's limited to borough residents, and you have to register your child in advance. And I was told tonight you could register the child here with the front office, or you could go over to the police department and do it there. My report, I have two items, I guess. The fire truck dedication was held last week. It was at St. Luke's Hospital. I thought it was well attended by the borough officials. It was well attended by the fire department and the fire police and the hospital officials. And we want to again thank the hospital for their generosity. I thought it went well. And the Arbor Day event, one of my favorite holidays of the year, is coming up. It's the last Friday in April. It apparently will be in the Upper Dotson ball field at 1 o'clock. We dedicate a tree. The state forester has been invited, and the usual assortment of elected officials.
Yeah, correct. Or Representative McNeil has confirmed our state forester has a prior commitment, but he's going to try and get us another person from DCNR.
And we've been a tree city for, what, the last 20 years or so, 25 years?
Jason?
28? Perfect. And the thing I like about Arbor Day is that, as they say in the program, and most holidays, you look back, with Arbor Day, you look forward. And I do enjoy that. And I would like to say every once in a while, I go around town and look at prior year Arbor Day trees. That's all I have. Mr. Berger.
Yeah, something I just wanted to raise to council that you can kind of think about it. So, as a result of the switchover, I'm kind of getting a little bit, knowing what's going on with the borough with the two meetings. My concern, and I guess you might, for everyone who's here at the last meeting, is that I'm not sure why we have action items on all agendas without the solicitor here. My concern is just the mix-ups we have where if we don't have quorums or have a quorum, majority votes for certain items, majority doesn't vote for other items. I know there was a little bit of confusion when it came to what is necessary voting when it comes to a quorum. Like, for example, under the NPC, if you have just a quorum of board members, you need a unanimous vote of that quorum. But that's not the same for borough votes, that kind of thing, for action items. It's not that expensive for me to come to a hearing if you're gonna have action items at both meetings. But I'm also thinking that if you're going to not have me come to both meetings, that's perfectly fine. I would ask that the action items be put for one meeting and not both meetings if you're not gonna have me attend those meetings.
That was the way it was back in the day. We only talked about things the second meeting of the month, but that changed slowly over the years. And now the second meeting of the month is just a normal council meeting with some minor changes.
Yeah, I mean, that's understood. I guess it's how council wants to go ahead and go about it. I mean, meetings are not.
Okay. To have a meeting, you are not required to have action items at all meetings. A meeting is either deliberation or action. So if you're concerned with having both, or if you need to have both on an agenda to have a council meeting, though that's not the case. All council meetings are advertised as general meetings, but at a general meeting, you can certainly decide on an agenda item only to have discussion items and no action items.
All right, let me toss it out to the other members of council. Do you have any objection to that? Okay, I'm hearing no opposition, so.
Excuse me, I think the reason that changed over the years was because there were certain times when, even though the action items were for the first of the month, and then it was called a workshop meeting in the middle of the month, just to discuss various items. But I think as the years went by, things came up that we needed to deal with, that it wasn't just, well, we're going to wait another month, that, you know, that we needed to take action on them. And I think that's how it evolved into taking action in both meetings.
Well,
And that's perfectly fine too, meaning just by, if you delegate it as a workshop meeting, or I don't even say delegated, you have a meeting, but you normally don't put action items on that agenda. If something comes up in the month between this meeting and the subsequent meeting, there's nothing preventing the borough from putting that action item on that agenda. But I guess there's a difference between having one emergency action item, or I don't want to even call it an emergency action item, but having an action item on an agenda, and having an agenda that has multiple action items, even when you're going to have possible action items where there's an issue with an action item. So like, if an issue arises at the time of the meeting and the solicitor's not here, that's kind of a problem. What do you do? How do you resolve it? But if you're delegating where you put most of your action items on one meeting, and then let's say we reserve the second item if something comes up during the course of the month, arrangements can be made, things can be figured out, so you don't have that issue at that meeting. But it's just something generally going on where, let's say, if we just have general things that don't come up, you can put it all on one meeting. It's not something that has to be voted on at a workshop meeting if you're not going to have the professional services people here, that kind of thing.
And if there is an emergency, I would assume you would be available to come, or somebody from your office.
Correct.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Ms. Jordan?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
So, do we want to go back to discussion only in the absence of an emergency for the second meeting of the month?
I like that.
Okay.
It's appropriate.
What goes around comes around. It's things. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
All right, and just to clarify from my standpoint, so we will put items that are upcoming for discussion on the Wednesday or the second meeting agendas, and then if something would change that is time sensitive, I would then communicate that we're going to have an action item, and then reach out to our legal counsel, whether it be Mr. Berger or Mr. Laird, to seek their attendance. So, okay, very good. I will make that so.
That works. All right. Committee reports, the finance.
Okay, please refer to the list of expenditures from the borough funds during the month of March. Out of the general fund, $137,872.04. From the health and sanitation fund, $50,030.45. Out of the sewer fund, $83,954.33, and from the liquid fuel fund, $946.34. I would make a motion at this time to approve the disbursements of borough funds during the month of March.
Now, the motion's been made. Do you want to second it?
Second.
Mr. Trable. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. Mr. Trable? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Riff?
Yes.
Mr. Trotter?
Yes.
And I say yes, let's pay the bills. Public Works, Ms. Jordan.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Quarry, our Public Works Supervisor.
Some of my favorite words. The police, Sergeant Hawkwaters here, back there. Okay, do you have anything? No, nothing. Some of my favorite words. House and Ordinance, Mr. Ruff.
Unfortunately, we haven't met yet, so I have no report.
Okay. Fire, Mr. Triple.
For fire school training. Oh. And 3 hours of work, well, actually 4 hours of work detail hours, a total of 116 total man hours for the month. And the fire department will be helping with the Easter egg hunt again this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trimble. Ms. Johnson, Recreation.
I believe we covered everything with the borough manager's report.
I would tend to agree. Ms. Graham, Health and Sanitation.
Okay, so this report is updated as of March 22nd. So for garbage collection, our total is $78,367.45. For sewer, we are at $103,747.58 with a grand total of $182,115.03.
Thank you. I ask this question every so often. Are we making any dent into the past due accounts? The seriously past due accounts?
Oh, yeah. Collections is, we're making a dent. We'll leave it at that.
Is it a big dent?
Cordell, is it a big dent?
Did you give a specific number?
No. I just asked.
Just a big one.
I just ask if, are we making significant headway in our hardcore past due accounts? The 5, 6, 7,000.
So I was just clarifying, those are the accounts that we have, that we have.
Yeah, you have to hold it in.
That we have turned over to the
The
solicitor.
solicitor.
And some accounts were able
to be resolved in terms of having been paid off. Some accounts, they experience the same problems we have had too, where you simply cannot reach the parties at all. They either refuse to accept letters that are sent by certified mail, or are simply not able to be located. That's a big problem. So I will be potentially meeting with the paralegal from your firm to discuss some of the next steps we can take. And other than that, I do feel that some other accounts that have not been turned over to collection, that are reaching up a level that will be sent over to collection, that I feel like word has spread in the community that some people do adhere to the bills, the letters that we continuously send, and I have to report on a positive note that some of the residents have taken advantage for a new county initiative where delinquent sewer accounts are subsidized by the county, and we have received those funds in the meantime. So that's a help for them, a help for us. It's a positive thing on each note, and we had advertised it both on social media, on the website. We have a pamphlet out here at Borough Hall, and certainly the county itself has promoted this assistance program as well. So we're doing everything we can.
Thank you. I know there's been a lot of hard work, and at some point I'd like to see some numbers, but
I do want to point out, Mr. Blatt, though, that, and I spoke with Ms. Graham about that as well, that I do provide, or have been providing since the beginning of this year, not just what we collected actually during the month, but given like an status quo report about where we are in our collections percentage-wise and dollar amount-wise.
right, yeah, that's at some point, that's what I would like to say.
And that's more informative than just the collection report, let's face it.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
again, I do want to commend you, the solicitor. I know the number's down. It was very high, and it's coming down, which is a very good thing. Mr. Trotter, we're back to you with personnel.
There were no meetings.
All right, I would ask you to get with Mr. Gratz and get the code enforcement interviews set up as quickly as possible. Special Select Committee, Chief, anything?
Most of you've probably seen, but there was a double fatal fire down in Hellertown.
Yes, we did.
Please keep the family and also the first responders, because they have to deal with that loss just as much as they were there, they were involved in it. So I'm just asking to keep everybody that was involved in your thoughts and prayers, please.
And this would be a good time to, I mean, I usually say this for fire prevention month, but this would be a good time to check the batteries in your smoke detectors. This would be a good time to have the family get together, to have the family plan in case of emergency and where to meet. This would be a good time to look for frayed wires, check your electric box to make sure, and your outlets to make sure they're not sparking, and maybe some appliances, some of the older appliances. Have I missed anything?
Just if you have an issue, don't be afraid to call us.
You know, that too.
We could get there and solve the issue quickly, and we wouldn't happen to have something that just.
And it's much better than having 2 dead children. That is sad. Thank you, Chief. Sergeant Hawkwater, anything else you wish to add? Jason, anything you wish to add? Anything from the hospital? Anything from the library?
No, sir.
Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Privilege of the floor. Sir, I know you said your name was David. I'm terrible with names.
Jason.
Oh, Jason. You want to come up and talk to us about the pool? I am Brandon. I have several Achilles heels. One of them is names. I'm terrible with names. But please, would you give your name again and your address again?
Jason Brandon, 701.
I thought I heard Dave. And what do you wish to tell us about the pool?
They're happening, I just don't know, like, what was sent out to the people so that more people than 250 people knew that it was going to be closed?
Well, we had the survey online, we had the survey, we had the, I believe, there were flyers at selected businesses. We had the pool meeting the end of February down at the Doctor's Pavilion at the hospital. That was also on social media.
It was also advertised, the public meeting at the hospital was advertised in the Bethlehem Press as well.
And it was announced at several of our meetings. There was the citizens' opportunity to come down and speak, either pro or con.
Didn't we attach it to a bill as well?
I think we attached it to a bill.
So it was on the first quarter sewer bill.
Unfortunately, the only two people that actually basically spoke against the pool. There was a brief presentation from Mr. Corey as to the short-term costs and the long-term costs. There was a discussion about the usage of the pool and how it has been going down, steadily downhill lately. You heard about the staffing problems that other municipalities are having. We've had those problems for the last, 5 years now, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I lifeguarded last year.
Getting guards, so it was a perfect storm of a variety of things, and the vote of council was to close it. Ms. Graham and I voted against that, but, we were outnumbered, and as Mr. Zofko said, times have changed.
Times have definitely changed, I agree with that, and I'm glad that at least two of you, tried to do the right thing. So, my thinking is why wasn't it like a big yellow letter form sent to everybody's house and say pool closing? To put something on a garbage and sewer bill in fine print, nobody looks at that. You know what I mean? Like, you can say that it was on YouTube, it was on this and on that. Nobody really looks at that stuff. Closing of the pool is a very serious thing. You know what I mean? It's not something that you just do in the dark. You know what I mean? Like, it should be, everybody should know about it. I mean, if there's 250 people that were surveyed, how many people were in count? No, about 5,000? I mean, that's like nothing. I mean, if you did a survey, 5,000 people, and 3,000 people said no, I get it. But 250 people, and half of those people said yes, the other half said no, that doesn't sit right with me and everybody who I talk to. I talked to 250 people already, and everybody's against it. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem like right.
Excuse me, Jason, we didn't just survey 250 people. We had a survey that was accessible to the entire population of Fountain Hill. And the survey was advertised on social media for a long time. It was on our, sometimes I find it confusing that people felt that they weren't informed, and there was a backlash on social media about this vote, but it seems like everybody who's on social media somehow didn't see that, but they see everything else on social media. But going back to the survey, it was really advertised any way it could be, and it ran for months. It wasn't just a 2 or 3 week thing.
It started in
and that's the
October.
response that we got. It started in October, and it went all the way till February. And as far as the public meeting, that was advertised on social media over and over and over again. So it wasn't a matter of the people didn't know or the people weren't told about it. It was just a matter of this was the response. The bottom line was 19 people came to the meeting where we had at St. Luke's, where we were expecting hundreds of people. We really were. And when 19 people showed up, it was a message in one way. It was just a message of, this is the response. And President Blatt's right, the two people that responded were not talking in favor of it. They were agreeing that it isn't functioning anymore. So to say that the residents weren't informed, I find that to be a little confusing, because I know how everybody tried to keep informed about the process. It wasn't just something that we were slipping by. We weren't trying to just slip it by anybody. It wasn't some shady little operation. It was just the way it was. We felt we gave the residents enough time and enough opportunity to express their opinion, whether it was online with the survey or whether it was showing up in person or even coming here for a regular borough meeting. Nobody ever came here and talked about the pool, and this is the result.
I didn't know that the pool was closing. I can get more than 19 people in the next 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, it's like more people have to know about this. They just have to know about this. To say you put it on a little bill, to say it's on social media, what if you don't have a computer or a phone? You know what I mean? Like, kids in the community still need a place to go swimming.
It was announced.
The pool is my neighbor has 5 kids. They want to be able to walk to the swimming pool. They don't want to have, talking to other communities, Hellertown, Allentown. You know what I mean? How are they going to get there? They want to be able to walk to the pool. I know things have changed from the way they were years ago. I get it. I totally get it. But that doesn't mean it can't go back. You know what I mean? Like, we got to try harder. We just got to try harder, I think. And I'm telling you, everybody I talked to, nobody knew. Pool's closing. Nobody knew. You can't just use it's on social media and it's on your garbage and sewer bill. This is a big thing. I'm in Fountain Hill, resident, 28 years or something like that. I've been going to that pool since I was like 6 years old or something like that. I'm a hiller. You know what I mean? I'm never going to use the pool again. I'm going to tell you that. I'm not going to use it. But it's not about me. It's about the community and the kids. It's bad out there nowadays. But we can't just keep closing stuff down because stuff is bad. We just can't. There's got to be a solution. Some rich person, the hospital, Wawa, Dollar General, the state, old people that just passed away and they want to give money, there's got to be something. More people had to know about this, and they didn't. They just didn't. That's where I'm at. More people had to know.
Other than have a town crier, I don't know what else we can do. I mean, I announced it several times prior to the February 28th meeting that we were having it. It's been on our agendas. I don't know, other than having a town crier, I just don't know what else.
Well, and the concept with the garbage and sewer bill was that it's a bill, folks would look at their bill, so that was a good place to put it. I think most folks discard what they deem to be junk mail, so the idea was that you would look at your bill and see that was on there. We also have a very poor response rate from traditional U.S. mail from most of our citizens, so that was one of the reasons why we tried to broaden our horizons onto social media here.
We could have stamped the envelope that said the pool's closing on the front of the envelope. We could have done a lot of things.
Well,
We can't blame the post
the pool wasn't closing, sir, until that was a matter for a vote.
all of this. I'm not a genius when it comes. I know a lot more than I do that believe in what I'm believing.
Well, Jason, again, let me remind you, the numbers have been dwindling. The people who have used the pool on a regular basis, the numbers have been dwindling over the years. I think we only broke 100 in attendance twice last year, Mr. Trable, I think someone said?
We had 6 days where we had 100 or more.
Okay.
Some of the days prior to that, we only had 1 or 2 people in.
We also were
a lot of
open
times
for-
when there were just maybe a handful of people. I remember when I was up there, when I was a kid, and you'd have nice weather, that cool pool would be packed. I've walked by the pool a couple of times, and maybe there are a handful, maybe two handfuls full of people in there. And it's just that if everybody wanted it, why weren't they supporting it?
Yeah, and Jason, as recently as a generation ago, when I had my children at the pool was packed, but it's just not there anymore.
But the people still deserve the pool, whether it costs us more money to have less people go there. I know, there's gotta be a way. There's gotta be a way.
Sure.
So I agree with your logic 100%. I understand that, where you're coming from. The issue is, even with the limited data that we have, people that said, when we asked them, are you willing to pay more money in taxes to keep this pool running, that was one of the resounding numbers was no, absolutely not. I understand that people are attached to the concept of having a pool, and they like this feeling because they had it generationally. I mean, my Aunt Mo, her dad sold spaghetti and did work to get the pool set up. And I 100% think it's an asset. The question is, how much were people invested in maintaining this asset and keeping it in good shape for the next generation moving forward? I feel like the momentum from the community had stalled out a decent bit. I think that was part of the reason that we saw low turnouts. So I would agree with you. I understand where you're coming from as far as the big yellow letter, pool is closing. The issue is that, like, these bills get paid. I view the bill. We will have more people who will complain when their bill is $4 off than answered the survey. So it's not a question of exposure. And as far as the yellow envelope, I completely understand, but I would shred that immediately. I mean, I get so much junk mail, and that's probably the only reason the U.S. Postal Service is still in business. And listen, there's actually three Fountain Hill Facebook groups where everyone's hailers and they all talk about community stuff. There's tons of them, right? There are more people in that group that see the announcements than actually responded to the survey. It's been posted on all three. I very much think that it might be a hurtful thing to understand, but I think that the vast majority of people thought of this as effectively a non-issue, and when the time came to be pro, con, yay, nay, there just wasn't enough support. And I think it's tragic and it's sad, but I don't necessarily think that going back and redoing it was, first of all, I don't think it's an option. Second of all, I don't think it's actually feasible or beneficial to our community. I mean, we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars that can be spent to do things like upgrading our park facilities, looking at the pool itself to make some sort of more marginal upgrades to it to be in a different form. But I don't know that necessarily the community support is there for it. I mean, hundreds of people have viewed the things. There are more comments right now on the pool than there were responses to the survey, I'm pretty sure. I mean,
there were hundreds of comments, and then it almost went viral. It went over to Bethlehem, and it went to various areas. And after reading all of it, it seemed like the major heartache was the memory. The memories of, I was 11 years old and I took swimming lessons there, and again, I'll say it again, I've been here longer than any of you. And I was there the day they opened that pool in 1959. And nothing about this is easy or painless. This is as heartbreaking a thing as anybody can imagine. But the people that were commenting, 90% of the comments were, they were losing a memory. They were losing the memory of a wonderful time in their lives in 1962 or 1982 or whenever it was they were here, and it was a magical time. And yes, it was a magical time. But it's 2022, and it's a different community now. It's not that we don't love our community, but it's changed. You don't have the hundreds of people. I'll take you back. I'll give you a little history lesson, because I was here. When in 1959, we had bake sales, we had car wash, and I'm not talking about one or two a year. I'm talking about week after week after week. And it was hundreds of people. and we had our carnivals. And the carnivals were not run by council. It had nothing to do with government. It was the people coming out of their house, coming at night, meeting at each other's homes, raising that money little by little over the years. That's the way the borough worked back in the day. The borough does not work that way anymore. I know there's people who are concerned and still love the community, but you don't have a majority of it. I would like to see it happen again. I know Mr. Zofko has the dream of starting a citizens committee, which is wonderful, and we will do everything we can to encourage that. But the bottom line is, you didn't have interest for the last 5 years. You didn't have participation. Last summer, if you had 2 or 3 people there on any given day, unless it was 100 degrees, it was a lot. It's just a new world where staffing is impossible almost, to the point where you can't get anybody to work anywhere. This isn't something that was done against the citizens. This is just real life, financial, look at the finances and look at what we can and can't do, and there is nothing there that's just the memories that everybody has and the objections that they have. The memories can't sustain a pool. Everybody's memories and good times and wishes cannot sustain a pool. You have to have interest, you have to have participation, and you have to have the finances to do it. And we don't have that.
So, what is that, like a public thing, or is that like?
Well, they were announced those costs were announced at the public meeting on the 28th. I think the short-term cost, Jason, not you, the other Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, was about 65,000, and then the long-term costs were hundreds of thousands.
Just for the record, I did sit down with Jason for about a half an hour today to discuss his concerns, and kind of gave him my end of what we were after and why we made the decisions we made, so he is kind of already tightened up on everything that we already did.
All right.
I also said,
And
this is a great opportunity for him maybe to get involved with the park that we were going to be talking about tonight. He wanted to.
yeah, the citizens committee that Mr. Zofko wants to put together.
I'd like to say a few things too. So I'm head of the Recreation Committee, and unfortunately I was representing Fountain Hill at another event at the last meeting, so I was not here to vote. I would not have voted to permanently close the pool. I probably would have voted to close this year because I know that we have so many fixes that we had to make at the pool. But the biggest issue that I see is staffing. Like I said, I lifeguarded last year. I recruited my son to lifeguard. I got his girlfriend to lifeguard, friends, families. We operated with 7 maybe lifeguards last year, and we usually have a staff of about 12 to 16. We were running very bare bones, and we had to pay signing bonuses, which we normally don't do. Dorney Park is starting first-year lifeguards at $18 an hour. There is no way that we as a municipality can afford that at that rate. We also then need to consider if we're going to hire the YMCA, which many people are not happy with their management of the pool, or find a way to manage the pool ourselves, which would mean adding certifications, finding a manager for the pool, finding assistant manager for the pool. And we're living in a post-COVID world now, and we're also living in a social media world where parents are very much understanding that their teenage child, who is lifeguarding typically, is going to be recorded. If something happens and that child is somehow doing something silly and doesn't catch their child, another person drowning, they're held liable. It is a much different, more legal, unfriendly world that parents are seeing their kids operate in. And so that's another issue that we're dealing with in hiring lifeguards. Typically teenage students, and their parents don't want them being held. Their parents don't want to be held liably for anything that would happen while their child is working. It's much more different than when I did it when I was 16. I worked at this pool when I was growing up for 6 years. I came back last year so we could have the pool open, and the environment's different. Everything that we've dealt with is different. For 6 years, I never had to go in after somebody in pool. I had 6 saves personally last summer at our pool, in addition to the other saves people had. And that's scary. That's scary for parents who see their kids being held liable for this. It's scary for their kids to be considered giving mouth to mouth if they have to do that in a post-COVID world. And then just staffing in general. Staffing in general is just a horrible thing. I know that there are many grants out there. Nothing is permanent. I would really hope to see that what Mr. Zoff does, but again, that's going to rely on the community coming together. And we can see when we have things that the community wants to do, they just don't show up anymore. They just don't, and it's sad. This is not the same borough that I grew up in. It's not what I moved back to the borough to see, and it's incredibly disappointing that we don't have more people wanting to do things for the borough. I hear all the time, oh, we should have carnivals again. The carnival wasn't run, as Ms. Jordan said, by the borough. Those were citizens. Those were groups that came together to put that on, having the bake sales, and it just doesn't happen. Most of the people that live here are either much older, they've been here for a long time, and they're on fixed incomes and can't do it, or we have a large number of rental community members who are not here, who don't, for whatever reason, and I think it's really sad, but they don't feel committed to our community. They're not looking to be here, and so they don't really care that things are not like they do. They don't feel like they can get involved, or for whatever reason, they just aren't. And that's disappointing too, and I don't know how to fix that. We're getting involved with the school. We try to meet parents there at the elementary school, but I don't, other than begging people and knocking on every single door and begging them to come out and help, I don't know what else to do. I really don't know what else to do.
I know it's not easy, but you just can't shut everything down because.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And I agree with you. All right. I am going to have to end this. I think we can sit here and debate this all night, and there's other people who may want to address council. We thank you for your concern.
Excuse me a minute.
Mr. Treble, yes.
Okay. You asked about the cost. Several years ago, Nazareth redid their pool. They budgeted $1 million. They ended up spending $3 or $4 million. That's a lot of money.
That's Nazareth. I mean, what does our pool need?
Almost as much. Almost as much.
Fine, then we just have to find somebody with that money.
As soon as you said that, all right, Jason, I know you're concerned, but we do have a 3-minute time limit, and there's some other people who want to address council.
I understand.
Okay.
All I'm asking is there should have been a bigger letter. More people, if you would have did that, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. I guarantee it. Guarantee it.
All right. I promise this gentleman next. And again, I would ask you to give us your name and your address.
Jack Soma, 1105 Wiley Street.
And what do you wish to say, sir?
Just very, first of all, thank you to the council and to the mayor and to our borough manager for the work they're doing tonight. You run a very efficient meeting.
Well, thank you.
That doesn't get you over the financial issues and the long range of it, but
We don't run government by opinion poll. We run it by informed people in council like you. And I know you're protective of the way of life, and at some point, borough recreation is more expensive not to have than to have. When your families leave the community, or new families don't move in. So you weigh that. It's not just where the number of majority of 19 people during COVID filled out a particular meeting or something like that. But, the long-term strategic planning of what type of community you want to have in Fountain Hill should be your guide. And of course, you have to make the budget. Of course, you have to make that work with the community. I'm 57 years old. I have my AARP card, so I guess I count as one of the ones that, who might be one of the older citizens. But you could tax me, I'd be okay with that. But just have confidence in yourself to make the right decisions. And I know you're working extremely hard.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate those kind words. Anybody else wish to address the council? Seeing and hearing none, before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I want to remind everybody our next meeting is April the 20th, as I recall, at 7 o'clock. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Johnson, is there a second? Mr. Traber will have a rising vote, and again, thank you for coming out. This is the best attendance we've had, the best personal attendance we've had in a long time. Thank you. Yes, sir.